Welcome to the MMA Drama podcast. I am Tony59, and welcome to the show where you can get the latest news, gossips, rumors, and fight prediction. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. So, today I want to talk about a fantasy fight that never happened, that should have happened, that could have happened, but it didn't. I'm talking about the old UFC days. I'm talking about George St. Pierre versus Anderson Silva. So I'm taking it back. I'm taking it back when George St. Pierre was the king of the welterweight division and Anderson Silva was the king of the middleweight division. These two guys are supposed to have a super fight, okay? The best welterweight fighter of all time, GSP, against the best middleweight fighter and one of the greatest of all time, Anderson Silva. Wow. But, unfortunately, it never happened. The UFC want to make it happen. Dana White want to make it happen. Anderson Silva wants to make it happen. And supposedly, George St. Pierre wants to make it happen, but it was all about timing. According to him, it wasn't the right time. See, the difference between George St. Pierre and Anderson Silva is down. He don't give a fuck. He'll fight practically anybody. Okay? He'll fight. He wants to fight George St. Pierre. He wants to fight anybody because, you know, he loves fighting. He's like a Donald Cerrone. He wants to fight anybody, anywhere, anytime. He just wants to fight, okay? No matter what. It doesn't matter if he has the belt or if he doesn't have the belt. He just wants to fight. And so, but it was up to George St. Pierre. The ball was in his court, you know. George St. Pierre wants to fight Anderson Silva. However, he was not able to come to terms to make that happen. And I truly don't know the whole story of why it never happened. But Anderson Silva was down. Dana White, obviously he wants to make this super fight happen. The company, the UFC, wants to make it happen. So it seems like George St. Pierre doesn't want to make it happen. For whatever reason, okay? And so, George St. Pierre fights at 170 pounds. Anderson Silva at 185 pounds. As you can see, they have different attributes. Anderson Silva, 6'2". He walks around 220 pounds, you know. And he has to cut weight to get in shape to cut to 185. George St. Pierre, he walks around 192, 195, and he cuts to 170 as his fight weight. And so, and George St. Pierre walks around 5'11". So clearly the bigger and heavier man is Anderson Silva. He stands at 6 feet tall, 2 inches, and he's a lot heavier. He's southpaw. He's a striker, a dominant MMA striker. George St. Pierre is a very dominant wrestler. And so that's why you can see this matchup is very, very compelling. But unfortunately, it never happened. You know what I'm saying? It never happened. It could have happened, but it didn't. And if it were to happen, where if George St. Pierre were to go up to 185 pounds, at that time and defeat Anderson Silva and become the middleweight champion, he could have been a 2-division simultaneous champ. Yes, he could have been a welterweight champ and a middleweight champ simultaneously. He could have been the first simultaneous 2-division champion. Okay? He could have been the first. Not Conor McGregor. GSP could have been the first. It's just that the UFC at that time, nobody was ever thinking about that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you had two division champs, Randy Couture and BJ Penn, but they weren't two division simultaneous champ. But they were two division champ. However, the spotlight wasn't big enough on BJ Penn or Randy Couture. They accomplished being a two division champion. You know what I'm saying? It's just that Conor is a bigger star, and when Conor became a two division champ simultaneously, wow, like, you got these new audience, new MMA fans that doesn't really know too much about the UFC. They're looking at Conor like he's a fucking god. You know what I'm saying? But you're missing out BJ Penn. BJ Penn was a lightweight champ and a welterweight champ. Randy Couture, he was a light heavyweight champ and heavyweight champ in the UFC. You know what I'm saying? It's just that Conor has more star power, and the old UFC, again, the attention wasn't that much on these fighters, but Georges St-Pierre was the richest paying mixed martial artist. He was the richest paid mixed martial artist. Yes, he was the highest paid fighter in the UFC, probably in the whole MMA world, okay, at that time. And I thought Anderson Silva was the highest paid fighter. However, it was Georges St-Pierre, So at that time, Georges St-Pierre is huge in Canada, but Conor McGregor is a lot bigger when it comes down to star power. You know what I'm saying? And so it's crazy. And so, but this fantasy fight between GSP and Anderson Silva never really happened. Could have happened, but how would that turn out? How would the fight be like if they were to really fight? If they were to fight back in the day, who would win? GSP or Anderson Silva? Who would take it? And what weight class would they fight in? At 170, at 185, or somewhere in the middle, a catch weight. Okay? How do their styles match up? Anderson Silva, he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter. He loves standing and striking. He has the most knockout, what do you call it? He has one of the highest knockout ratios. He knocks people out. He finishes people. Georges St-Pierre, I guess he holds the record. I might be wrong, but he's probably one of the record holders of having the longest time in the octagon, meaning fighting in the octagon, holding the record for the longest time. So he's more of a distance fighter. He likes to go the distance, and that's how he wins. He wins most of his fights by going the distance. Anderson Silva wins most of his fights by knockout. You know what I mean? Totally two different type of approach to the fight game. So that's why it's very compelling. You know what I'm saying? Anderson Silva, he was a kickboxer, and he was also a boxer before he decided to fully commit to mixed martial arts. So he loves striking. Georges St-Pierre never wrestled growing up. Started learning wrestling when he started learning mixed martial arts, and became one of the most naturally gifted wrestler in mixed martial arts, and probably the most successful wrestler in mixed martial arts, Georges St-Pierre. It's crazy. Two high-level fighters, and one heavy striker, Anderson Silva, and one heavy grappler, Georges St-Pierre. And if they were to meet in the cage, man, how would that turn out? So, my fight prediction, that it can go either way. Anderson Silva can beat Georges St-Pierre purely by knockout. Either like a front kick to the face, maybe, punches, What else? Yeah, that's what Anderson Silva does. He knocks people out. George St. Pierre can win. He can win mostly with his wrestling. He would probably take Anderson Silva down and ride him out, get on a top position, ground and pound, just like how Khabib would do it, and just kill the clock, add up the points, and go the distance and get the unanimous decision. That's how George St. Pierre would win. You know what I'm saying? He's not going to stand there and strike with Anderson Silva. No, he don't play that. He knows Anderson Silva is a striker. So what he wants to do is take him to the ground. Play it safe. Get on top, ground and pound, look for the submission, wind down the clock. Okay? It's a strategy, Anderson Silva, he's comfortable on his back. Anderson Silva's not a wrestler. So if GSP were to take him down, Anderson Silva's going to pull guard. Anderson Silva's going to work his way from the bottom position. He's going to look for submission, or he's going to get back up to standing where he does best, which is striking. Okay? And so, yeah, it's very, very interesting to find out how this fight would turn out. Like, what would the results be like? Would GSP defeats Anderson Silva purely by using his wrestling skills and taking him to the ground and going the distance? Or would Anderson Silva would just catch GSP at the right time and knock him out and win by KO? It's a fight that we're never ever going to see. George St. Pierre is retired. Anderson Silva is done with mixed martial arts. Now he's doing boxing. Recently just defeated Tito Ortiz. So, man, if these two were to fight, it could have been the biggest, or one of the biggest UFC fights and one of the biggest pay-per-view buys, in my opinion. And one of the biggest historical fights in mixed martial arts history. Okay? Yeah. Very compelling, right? See, when you look at George St. Pierre, the king of the welterweight division, defended his title multiple times. I believe 9 times. He was a 2-time welterweight champ. Defended his belts probably about 9 times. Don't quote me on that. Yeah. When he fought Josh Koscheck, a strong D1 wrestler, national champ wrestler. He doesn't want to wrestle with Josh Koscheck, so he keep the fight standing. Does a lot of jabs. When he fought Jake Shields, he understands Jake Shields is a strong grappler. He keeps the fight standing. When he fought Nick Diaz, Nick Diaz is a strong grappler. He doesn't, but he understands that Nick Diaz likes to trade punches. Nick Diaz has some good boxing, and he does not want to stand toe-to-toe and box with Nick Diaz, especially when Nick Diaz loves to pressure people. He loves to pressure fighters. So what did George St. Pierre did? He fucking took Nick Diaz to the ground and fucking ride him out, right? So that's how George St. Pierre fights. He fights what you're supposedly weak on. So if you're a great striker, but you're not a strong grappler, that's where he's going to take you. He's going to take you to the ground. If you're a strong grappler, but a weak striker, he's going to keep the fight standing. That's George St. Pierre, and he's been very successful in the welterweight division for a very long time. Now, Anderson Silva, man, this dude is fucking knocking people out. He's knocking people out. He defended his title, I believe, about 10 times, okay? He defended his title about 10 times, went up to 205s, light heavyweight division. He went up to 205s and defeated 3 fighters four. He defeated 4 fighters in the light heavyweight division. In the light heavyweight division, that is, at the time, John Jones was the fucking king, and DC was up there, right? So he defeated Forrest Griffin, former light heavyweight champion. He defeated Stephan Bonner, right? A UFC, the Ultimate Fighter Season 1, finalist, right? And he defeated James Irwin, right? He defeated James Irwin. Knocked him out. Knocked out Forrest Griffin. Knocked out Stephan Bonner. And he fought Daniel Cormier. Lost to Daniel Cormier. Took that fight on fucking 3-day notice, I believe. Okay? It was the main event where DC is supposed to fight John Jones. John Jones, I don't know what happened to John Jones at that time. Either the whole pictogram, steroid usage, or some shit happened. I don't know what the fuck happened, but John Jones pulled out. Anderson Silva fucking steps in on a 3-day notice to fight DC. Anderson Silva was not in shape. Okay? So somebody asked to make the 5-round fight into a 3-round main event. And Anderson Silva fought DC. Lost, but didn't get knocked out. Didn't get submitted. Lost. Holy shit. Fucking Anderson Silva. That's why he's the fucking greatest of all time. You know what I'm saying? Crossed over to boxing, defeated Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., defeated Tito Ortiz, although I don't count that, because Tito's not a fucking boxer. He's not a fucking striker at all. But he defeated a fucking legitimate world-class boxer, a fucking world champion, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., the son of a fucking great Mexican fighter and a legend in Mexico himself, Julio Cesar Chavez. That's fucking Anderson Silva right there. The fucking GOAT. Okay? So you got Anderson Silva fought 4 times in the light heavyweight division, right? Defended his title in the middleweight division about 10 times. Broke his fucking leg. Came back, fought Nick Diaz. This guy is a fucking stud. This guy, that's why he'll fight. He's like a Donald Cerrone. He'll fucking fight anybody. And he wanted to fight George St. Pierre. It's just that George St. Pierre and his side, I don't know what reason. Maybe it's too much. Probably Silva was too much. Can be too much for GSP. Maybe George St. Pierre doesn't want to tarnish his legacy. We don't know what's the reason. But all I know, this fight, if it were to happen, it could have been a fucking crazy-ass fight. My prediction in this fight, I truly believe George St. Pierre could beat Anderson Silva at a catchweight and even at middleweight at 185 pounds. I believe that George St. Pierre could fucking beat Anderson Silva and avoid getting knocked out. Really fucking nullifies Silva's striking ability and really taking the fight to the ground, just how Chael Sonnen did to Anderson Silva 1. Anderson Silva versus Chael Sonnen 1. Chael Sonnen fucking took Anderson down almost fucking 4.5 rounds. Even though Silva probably had some injuries going into that fight, he wasn't his best self. But that's what George St. Pierre can do, is that, he can take you down. He has very, very good timing in taking you down and then holding you down. So he reminds me of Khabib, and freaking just taking people down. It's crazy. But I believe George St. Pierre can beat Anderson Silva at catchweight or even at 185 pounds. And he could have been a 2-division simultaneous champ. Even though George St. Pierre is a 2-division champ because he defeated Michael Bisping and captured that middleweight title, after a 4-year layoff, came back, defeated Michael Bisping. Kudos to GSP. But I'm just saying, if he were to capitalize on the opportunity to fight Anderson Silva, one thing is, it's probably going to be his biggest payday and Anderson Silva's biggest payday. That's one thing. The second thing, it's fucking historic. It's going to be a legendary fight that's forever is going to be in the books, right? And the third thing is, I believe that George St. Pierre can beat Anderson Silva. I truly believe he's a little shorter. That gives him the advantage to fucking shoot the legs, do a double, single leg, and take Anderson Silva down. Anderson Silva is not a wrestler. You know, he's not a wrestler. He's a jiu-jitsu fighter. Okay? So, and you can see when Chael Sonnen fought Anderson Silva, Chael Sonnen was taking Anderson down, you know? And that's George St. Pierre's strong suit, is to take people down. And I believe he can take Anderson Silva down, ride him out, you know, for 5 rounds and win the fight via unanimous decision. That's my prediction. If this fight, you know, were to happen, I believe GSP would win. I believe GSP could have won. Okay? Now, if you look on the other side of the table, Anderson Silva can win. Obviously, Anderson Silva got fucking knocked out power. He can knock people out purely because of pure accuracy. You know, his precise striking can knock people out. You know, his unpredictable strikes coming out of every angle can knock out George St. Pierre. You know, if you give Anderson Silva 25 minutes to look for that knockout, he'll find it. But if he's fighting George St. Pierre, that 25 minutes can be a little difficult. Because, you know, George St. Pierre, you know, he's one of those smart fighters. You know what I mean? His fight IQ is really up there. It's really high. Up to John Jones, next to Anderson Silva, next to John Jones, Mighty Mouse Johnson. You know, really high fight IQ. Jose Aldo, you know, really high fight IQ. And again, Anderson Silva has 25 minutes to look for that knockout. And it's a high-level chess match, a high-level physical chess match between two greats, GSP and Anderson the Spider Silva. Man, it's freaking crazy if that fight were to ever happen. Crazy. But I still believe that GSP can avoid the strikes from Anderson Silva and nullify his strikes and really take the fight to the ground and play it safe and you know, ground and pound and look for the submission and use his wrestling skills to dominate the fight for all 5 rounds, you know, granting him the unanimous decision win. Okay? So that's my bold fight prediction if this fight, you know, were to ever happen. But hey, you know, these guys, they're fucking in their 40s now, you know what I mean? They're fucking greats, legends. You know, if you go 10 years in the future when they're in their 50s, you know, fight fans going to be talking about them. You know, they're already in the history books. They're already in the UFC Hall of Fame. And but it's unfortunate that we're never ever going to see these two fighters in the octagon, you know, throwing it down to see who is the pound for pound king. All right. So that's taking you guys back to the old days of the UFC when GSP and Anderson Silva were kings of the UFC. This is prior Conor McGregor. This is prior Ronda Rousey. Okay? Now, if you go back a little further, you got Chuck Liddell. You got Randy Couture, Tito Ortiz. They were kings of the UFC at the time. BJ Penn. Okay? Man, taking it way, way back. All right? I'm talking about 2 decades ago. So, it's crazy, man. If you know your fight history, especially if you know the UFC's history, shit, man, there's some very, very exciting fights and very talented, gifted fighters that fought in the UFC. And, you know, it's crazy, you know. But anyway, guys, just wrapping it up. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Again, let me know what you guys think. George St. Pierre or Anderson Silva, who do you think would have won? And how would that person win? Would George St. Pierre win via unanimous decision? by using his wrestling skills, or Anderson Silva using his striking skills to look for the knockout? Who you guys pick? GSP or Anderson the Spider Silva? And let me know. All right, guys. I hope you guys enjoy the show. Now, if you find this podcast valuable in any way and you wish to support this podcast, you can do so by clicking on the support tab, and you can make a small monthly donation to help sustain future episodes of MMA Drama. All right, guys. I hope you guys enjoy your day. Yeah, man. I'm looking forward to Paulo Acosta fighting Marvin Vettori. They're agreeing right now to fight at a catch weight at 195 pounds because fucking Paulo Acosta is too big. He's walking around 211 pounds as we speak right now, and there's no way he can go down to 185. He'll fucking pass out. That's the thing with weight cutting. But I think right now they're trying to match it up at 195 pounds catch weight between these two guys. So I'm going to check that fight out and see how it goes. But again, guys, thank you for tuning in. This is the MMA Drama Podcast. I am Tony 59, and I'm out. Thank you.